Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
I'm speaking for myself and Deanna DeVal. She had to leave for a family problem. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I would like you to know I am, of course, in opposition to Resolution 17-12-13 for the following reasons. The proposal of accepting $160,000 is not a big sum from the state to help pay for a property which has strings attached to it that would allow trapping in our Dane County Park. As you know, trapping is a cruel and outdated practice that causes immense suffering, not only to our magnificent wildlife, but also to our unsuspecting pets and people, especially our children. Allowing trapping on this property would set a precedent to allow trapping in the future of other Dane County parks, of course. I ask you, where may our wildlife, pets, and people go to enjoy our beautiful outdoors without the fear of pain and agony and death, as we have already had? Allowing trapping in our Dane County parks would put the county at risk for personal injury. This is a practical thing. Would put the county at risk for personal injury lawsuits, which would be greater than the initial money the county would receive from the state. Because of the moral and ethical considerations of the facts, I ask you to please oppose Resolution 17-12-13. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is a park? I know what it is to me, but I thought I'd ask some people at work today and see what they thought too. People who are different from me. I asked people who work in administration, some people who are scientists, and some people who are in manufacturing. I didn't cherry pick these answers. These were the first 6 I got. A park is a safe place for family and pets to go. A nice safe place for family to go that is free, where we can hike and boat. I don't think about hunting, fishing, or trapping. I think about camping and recreational use. A place where you can take your family and feel safe. Who wants traps lying around? I'm not opposed to population control if there's a need to, but I'm not open just because we take the money. Dane County has nice parks, but I cringe about hunting on parks for safety reasons. So if you ask me, what do I think about it? A place where a coyote can sit for hours to days in a trap, waiting to die till the trapper finishes him off, doesn't sound like a park to me. A place where a beaver or an otter gets ensnared in an underwater trap, it can take 9 to 20 minutes for them to finally drown. The American Veterinary Association said this is inherently cruel and inhumane way to die. It is not equivalent to euthanasia. It's not a place I want to take my son either. He can easily dart 30 yards off of the trail. He did so a few weeks ago to look at a mushroom. It never occurred to me about traps or anything like that. So I'm really happy they're not in place yet. So to me, a park is a place where we can go and intersect with nature and come back a little bit more enriched for it with a profound sense of wonder at something beautiful we saw, like a fox or a coyote. But I would never, ever want to explain what this is to my son. How would I explain why we do this to animals? You've heard a lot about how non-discriminate traps can be. Okay, traps can catch other animals that are rare and endangered. Sometimes they trap bobcats or eagles, and trappers call these trash animals. They're not trash to me. I don't think they're trash to you either. I just think that places where the inhabitants can be tortured to death are not parks. They're different. They're changed. So I'm standing up for our parks and for the visitors who go there and for the inhabitants that live there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for letting us discuss this issue a little bit today. I agree with the first gentleman who spoke that this is about land protection. I live in downtown Madison on a postage stamp size lot, and I get to enjoy the best of both worlds. I get to take my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old out to the parks. As this last woman mentioned, you know, they don't really pay much attention to the trails. The good stuff happens off trail. And I certainly feel like any sort of marker for a trap would simply draw attention for them more than anything else. I am concerned because there's a definite disconnect between people and nature, and it's only getting bigger. And I feel like having trapping in public lands in Dane County is going to cause that divide to deepen and give them another reason to be fearful of going out into our public lands and enjoying them and reaping all the benefits that they have to offer. Certainly I'm concerned about our pets. I am an owner at Mad Cat Pet Supplies here in town. I've heard from a lot of our customers concerned about this, and I know many of them couldn't be here today, including Carolyn, who lost her dog last year in a trap. So this isn't a theoretical concern. This is a real concern. This happened in our backyard less than a year ago. And I want to know that I can take my young children and pets out into the parks and be safe. And I think a lot of people want to know that. And I think it's really important that we allow our parks to be a safe haven for the community. And I think it's worth a lot more than $160,000. And I understand that you need to be fiscally responsible. I want you to be fiscally responsible. But surely there has to be a better way than this. There has to. I really believe that. I think we're better than this.
Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Rick Vogel. I'm co-executive director of the Alliance for Animals. We're, as you might imagine, strongly opposed to the resolution. I think that we, on the other hand, we really do strongly support the county's acquisition of green space, of open space, of undeveloped lands. We think that the preservation of habitat is very important, and it's something that the county ought to be involved in. And I think at times that we understand that that might come along with a bitter pill of allowing trapping some places. But we think that the law could potentially be changed down the road. So as the first speaker from Crane said, those sorts of things change, but we ought to be using the state monies to preserve lands. I think that's a good idea. This case is unique, though. We already own the property. We don't need to take the $160,000 to buy this particular piece of property. This is actually the only time that the county could say, we're acquiring the land, but we don't agree with the trapping requirements, so we're not going to allow it. If we take the money, then in fact we're making an affirmative statement that the county, in fact, endorses trapping on recreational properties. We think that's the wrong statement to send. I think it sets a precedent. It says that maybe we should expand trapping elsewhere. That seems like the wrong message to send. I hope that actually what happens because of parks pushing this, I hope it opens a discussion to the wider use of county parklands. Maybe we should look at places where the property was bought that wasn't using Knowles Nelson at the time that these 5 uses were put in place. Maybe there's places where trapping is going on right now that the county could actually say, no, we're not going to allow that. This actually opens the discussion, I think. I don't see any reason why in the world we would say we're going to take the $160,000. You know, the county spends this, I think in the budget this was $2 million on land acquisition, which I think is a good thing. So $160,000 of that $2 million is not that much. We already own the land. So there's this piece of property is not, it's not on the block. We're going to lose it if we don't spend this money, and we're going to keep it if we do. That's not the case. The case here really is a matter of fact. In this one particular small 25-acre parcel, is the county going to say, we're going to embrace trapping because Parks has asked us to? Sounds like the wrong choice to make. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm a veterinarian. I know a bit about inhumane activities, and this is trapping is right at the top of the list. What we're talking about here is not being interested in, obviously we want to protect land, we want to set aside land for the parks. I mean, that's a no-brainer, really. The situation here is the conditions under which this is received. But the DNR is primarily involved with exploitation of animals. That's their thing. They run the hunting, trapping, fishing seasons. This is what they do best. They don't have to defer to the parks to bring their agenda to the protection of animals and have a safe place for people and pets and anything else that might be there. And this is a separate issue. If you accept pressure from them, a precedent is essentially set to expand this activity. There's no doubt about it. This will not rest with this acceptance of these funds, this will open the door to incursions in other parks and other properties that are already in place, as well as those coming up in the future. So don't make any mistake about that. We personally run a wildlife sanctuary called Prairie Spirit Wildlife Sanctuary between Mount Horeb and Verona. It's a place where animals are protected, as well as everything else. The whole ecosystem is protected. Plants, trees, the whole works. And this is really what we need to be doing in this county. We need to be thinking about conservation biology, not the exploitation of a few animals for the benefit of a few people. That's all this comes down to. If anyone wants to hold a forum about any justification of trapping, I would be glad to participate in that, serve on the panel, because all the population and disease control myths are exactly that. They have no grounds. They're just perpetrated for the sake of continuing this type of activity. So I'd urge you to really take a look at that, at the reality of what would be happening here if you accepted these funds. You know, I mean, I should say we're pretty passionate about, you know, inhumane treatment of animals, and I think that should be a moral issue. And there's a lot of higher ground here to be looked at. You know, it's not just a matter of land, which is important, of course. It's a matter of how things are treated on that land and what we do with that land. Thank you.
I write a column about these things, and I guess I want you guys all to understand the underlying problem here. This rule change to put trapping into all of our public lands and stewardship lands and every bit of land that wildlife might refuge in was passed through without public input as a rule change between the Department of Natural Resources and the Resources Committee without public input. That's the first thing to understand. The second thing to understand is that the DNR, because of its structure, based on killing licenses, not saving licenses, which is the wrong structure, although Leopold didn't want this structure either, even though he was an avid hunter. It takes democracy out of the system systematically. So until we have general public funding, which wildlife watchers already bring to our state tax coffers, we're going to have this total imbalance of power destroying our wildlife wholesale as hunters try to up their power by providing more killing, more species to kill, more places to kill. And it will destroy our wildlife. And why I say I know that is that I served on the trapping committee inside of the Conservation Congress hunting lobby for 3 years, from 1999 to 2002, as a Dane County elected delegate. And when you're inside of a system that's used to being totally closed, then you find out some things. And what I know is that trapping in winter, 4.5 months in winter in all of our public lands, will attract wildlife from miles around and destroy the rest of our wildlife indiscriminately in the most absolutely insane way possible. We're all adults here. We know what suffering is. So we need to end this now and take a stand. Step by step, we are destroying our world. And we know that. We have to stop. So I'm just asking you to take a stand wherever you can, so that future generations don't go, what were these people thinking that they allowed all this cruelty to destroy our world? Really, we're at that point. Look at the temperatures. Look at the world. Look at the oceans dying. Look at everything dying, and we're still killing for fun? For trim on coats? For a DNR that's a sick, corrupt system? It's time to end this and get involved and help our world.
Besides the indiscriminate cruelty of these traps and the immense suffering that would be allowed if this resolution is passed, I'm very disappointed with the totally undemocratic process that leaves us citizens who you represent out of a discussion about an issue that matters to us all. We want to enjoy our parks, want them safe for us, our children, our pets, and our wildlife that live there. I've been trying to get word out about this George Orwellian stewardship grant, which uses very carefully chosen words to convince us that the trapper is being a good steward by controlling fur-bearing populations and managing diseased animals. Words like harvest and dispatch, which really mean to kill. I've learned they can't target a diseased animal with rabies because they don't eat during the latter part of the disease and usually crawl away somewhere to die. Instead, the baited traps simply lure every animal who has a keen sense of smell into these barbaric devices. We all believe in stewardship of our lands, but cruelty and suffering that happens with trapping just doesn't fit in this picture, and it's about time the public hears the truth. I bet you didn't know that Wisconsin is one of the 5 biggest wild fur producing states, and the Stoughton location is central to the sources. Stoughton, Wisconsin is the national headquarters of the North American Fur Alliance, and in 2010 exported 21 semi-loads of raw fur. That means from trapped, not farmed animals, to Toronto, where most of it eventually goes to China and Russia. With China's booming economy, trappers are getting good prices for fur. But the public remains in the dark about what's happening. Only a few reporters have covered this. Last year, Sean Doherty in the Capital Times alerted us. David Douglas and a few television stations talked about Carolyn's dog Handsome's tragic accident. Oh no, okay. The people I speak to are shocked to hear this is happening. They think trapping was banned. I've got like 900 signatures that I have to spend a lot of time explaining for every signature that I collect. And even because people don't know that this is happening, even the meeting information that I found in the paper didn't even mention this particular item on the agenda. And I've heard this argument that since this is a state mandate, we should be dealing with it at the state level, but I disagree. You're our county representatives. This is county property, and we have the opportunity now, and we have every right to be involved and say no to something so morally repugnant. Why wouldn't we? For money? That's the only reason? 2 quotes. First, from William Evu, the founding editor and publisher of the great Capital Times, which should have been printed in the morning and would still be around every day. Let the people have the truth and the freedom to discuss it, and all will go well. Please, a quote from Albert Schweitzer. Okay. The quiet conscience is the invention of the devil. No one of us may permit any preventable pain to be inflicted, even though the responsibility for that pain is not ours. No one may shut his eyes and think that that pain, which is therefore not visible, is non-existent. Thank you.
I know what it's like to be dealing with issues of killing in a park and living close to that park, you know, or situations of possible killing of wildlife. And I know that it's changed my thoughts completely about the park. The park used to be a place of respite for me. It is no longer. I fear for the people who live next to the parks if you go ahead and okay this. Because no matter how good we are with our pets, pets get out. You know, kids, we have kids in the family, the kids accidentally let the cat out or the dog out or whatever. We've lost 1 dog. And I guess I'm appalled that I even have to be here. And I'm appalled that we've already lost a loved pet dog. I fear that we're going to lose a lot more loved pets in addition to innocent wildlife for a sickening hobby of a tiny, tiny segment of our population, a sickening, greedy hobby. And if you aren't willing to live next to a park with your pets or your toddlers, children or grandchildren or whoever, and spend time in that park, or you know, or take a risk on, you know, possibly your pet's getting out. Okay, if you wouldn't be willing to do that with your pets or the toddlers you love, then you shouldn't be doing it to the people who are living close to the parks now.
Good evening, and thank you for having me able to speak to you. I would like to say much of what's already been said I won't repeat, but I have lived in Dane County now for probably about 45 years. I think it's a beautiful county and a beautiful state. And I really can't understand how we could even consider money before the ethical considerations here. We all know how terrible trapping is, not only if it catches a wild animal that can't get away, and you've already seen some pictures, and also the device that was shown to you a little earlier. It's a barbaric thing, and what is it for? It's for some very small segment of the population to be able to get some fur. And meanwhile, I want to be, like many others, the voice for the voiceless. We shouldn't be doing this. Money isn't everything. Yes, we do want to acquire land, and we want to protect land, but we also want to protect the wildlife. The wildlife can't be doing this for themselves, so I'm trying to be one of the people that stops it before it happens. Please don't let this happen. This is setting a precedent. It's an ethical issue, and I think that if you even give any thought at all to the suffering that animal will be going through, whether it's a wildlife animal or whether it's a domestic one, or whether it's perhaps one of our children running off the pathway, it's not worth it. We're a beautiful county. Let's keep it that way for the people and the wildlife. I guess that's all I need to say. I think, $160,000 is a lot of money for some things, but it isn't worth it for this. Please vote no on Resolution 17-1213.
Thank you. I'm going to read the slips of people who have registered in support and in opposition, and we have no other individuals who have registered to speak. Supervisor Rip, this is your resolution. Are you interested in making some comments?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to read the slips, and then if you would like to come up. First of all, registering in support is John Becker representing Cranes, and Carol Terrell representing, doesn't say, are you representing Cranes or Sierra? You, okay. And then representing registering in opposition is Lynn Pauley, Carolina Johnson registering in opposition, Dawn Sabin registering in opposition, Dan Stevens registering in opposition, Laura Schuster in opposition, and Gina Stussy in opposition. Supervisor Riff?
A few things. First off, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't part of legislation that Governor Doyle signed. Park Commission has no great desire to be putting trapping in our recreational parks, but I do have constituents who are trappers, and probably 40 years ago I trapped, so I have some background knowing it. But, public hearing, Parks Commission had public hearing. We had, I don't have the exact numbers, we had roughly 50-50 of people registering and speaking. Yes, we had, there were a couple more of the antis, but there were several people when they registered who were in favor. So the Wildlife Federation, the Conservation League, etc., had several members there who were in favor. Okay, I just made some notes as we were going here. This being a compromise, we've worked with the DNR, we've worked with the Natural Resources Board to get them to agree with this. If we turn it down, the compromise will be gone, and then if we want to get stewardship money for any of these, it'll be wide open trapping. So this is not about 162,000 only, it's also other future money also. And personally, I think a compromise is a whole lot better than having it wide open. So we do require these traps and this compromise to be 30 feet from any mowed areas, any trails, any building, anything we have. We restrict the type of traps that are talking on land at this point. The trap that Patricia Randall have up here tonight is illegal on land. We don't allow that on land. We have a light hole trap there for raccoon, which is very small. As far as kids, if you do let your under 1-year-old kid crawl through the brush, they might be able to get their hand in it. By the time they're 2, they probably can't because it's a very small hole to get into. Generally, dogs will not fit because, again, it's a very small hole. I understand there's a sub floating around, which if DNR or say the state, I believe the legislature would have to, if they remove this requirement, we remove this. I agree with that. I don't have any problem at all if we remove it from our active recreation parks. Someone mentioned baiting. Baiting's not legal. There was a problem years ago. You could bait. Eagles would tend to land on it, things like that, so that was outlawed. You can't do that. You also, I know dogs can get loose. Legally, they're required in this type of area to be on a leash. We have absolutely no trapping in a dog park. It's not going to happen. They can't get loose, but on land anyway, it's a very small thing where dogs can't get into. Water, we do have, like on this property, we have a drainage ditch. They will be allowed to trap muskrats, but they have to be so far from land. We've got a lot more stringent rules than they have at Tenney Park when they trap there. Something most people don't realize. But we have a lot more stringent rules. Under ice, you can do more trapping, but otherwise, you have to be way out in the water. So we went the extra mile to try and make this as safe as possible. We certainly don't want anyone to get hurt. And so we struggled with this a long time and came up with a lot of rules. So basically it. I appreciate being early on your agenda because I promised away something tonight, which I'm in violation.
Thank you, Supervisor Rick. Are there any questions for Supervisor Rick? When you say we, what do you mean by we?
Park Commission.
The Park Commission. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Park Commission went round and round on this, trying to find rules that we could get DNR to agree with, the Wildlife Federation, the people that push for statewide, wide open, and also with people who are against trapping.
I'm sorry, follow up. And then, so this was worked out. Doyle signed it. Was this with George Meyer when he is DNR secretary? Does that sound right to you?
Doyle signed this after George Meyer was no longer secretary.
Okay, thank you.
He was the head of the Wildlife Federation at this point.
Okay, thank you.
I couldn't tell you what year they did this, but it's coming to fruition now, and that it takes time.
Are there other questions for Supervisor Ripp or for staff?
I find it interesting that our friends at Cranes are supporting this, so I assume that they are supporting trapping. Well, supporting the resolution.
We're supporting the acquisition of the land.
Supervisor
I have a question before perhaps we begin, because I'm just getting information. I've got a statement from somebody that wanted it read at this hearing. Would I be able to do that for them, or how would that work?
I don't think we've ever done that. Is there something that you can give us a copy of?
She wanted it read.
I don't know if I've ever done that. I've never done that.
You could move to suspend the rules, but that's all you can do.
Well, the reason it's important, I think, to hear this is it comes from Patricia McConnell, who used to be on the public radios, Calling All Pets, and she's a doctor, veterinarian, and someone respected by the public. And I think her words are unique and representative of the opposition of this. So.
Well, we would need a motion to suspend the rules in order to do that.
I make the motion.
Is there a second?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I see we got an email from her. I read it, so.
Yeah, we got an email.
Is it different than what she sent us in her email?
I don't know.
I mean, she sent us. Okay, Colin, you have a question?
You were talking about the raccoon trap.
Did we get done with the?
Yeah, we gotta wait.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay, there's a motion, there's a second. Their concern has been raised that we got this in an email. Is there any other discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of suspending the rules to hear the testimony read?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Oh. Alan, your question?
You were talking about the raccoon traps.
Mhm.
Are those the legally largest allowed traps that are going to be allowed on the land?
On land, yeah, they're just the
On
small
this.
ones.
So this
In recreational parks
okay.
like this, it's just the small ones that are allowed on land. The larger ones are not allowed on land, which by state law, the larger ones are allowed, but this is,
But for this, that's going
for
to be
this,
the
you're
largest.
only allowed the small ones that just for like a raccoon's foot, is it?
Okay. So that's not the
Other questions?
I had a question for another member of staff.
For staff?
Yeah.
Okay. Any no other questions for Supervisor Rip? Thank you, Supervisor Rip. Thank you. Laura, you wanted to, did you want to ask?
Yeah, what's more?